All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Aaron Fragnito back with the Passive Cash Flow podcast. And we have an interesting guest today. We have David Homan, who I actually met at the Jaboy Productions Conference, which is a family office, high net worth individual RIA conference that I love attending and speaking at. And David caught my interest because he has many skill sets, none the least of composing classical music, having 7 albums out there that you can play on Alexa there, say play David Homan, very cool. But he also puts together incredible groups of people, family offices, high net worth individuals, movers and shakers within a number of industries. So we're going to break into that today and how he gets VIPs in the room and how he connects and creates value for them also. But how are we doing today, David?
I'm doing great, Aaron. And I just say, like, right back at you, met you at the same context in the conference of saying, wow, this is a guy who brings hundreds of people together regularly, and found that special sauce and understanding that being the convener, being the connector is the power. And by building out that type of power, what you actually do is you this constant, incredible inflow of people thinking of you for giving them value and bringing everyone together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been running my real estate networking group, New Jersey Real Estate Network, for since like 2012, and we have almost 6,000 members in it, and that has been a godsend. That's been something that's allowed us to raise millions of dollars of private capital, find opportunities to invest in, meet good contractors and service providers as well, and all the people and the programs we need to run a successful real estate investment company. But also, I love the community. I love meeting people. I love speaking publicly. I love connecting people as well with different needs. And just being a connector is such a rewarding thing. It's really a skill set as well that's important to hone. But how did you get into this space of what you do today?
So I'll tell you in the context of just what you told me, right? Because you've been doing this for a dozen years now, of bringing people together. And yet, in our world, we met coincidentally, being part of this conference, not in New Jersey, but down in the great state of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So what I realized 10 years ago was that almost everyone who was giving me the best inbound, strong relationships, they didn't look like me, they didn't talk like me, they weren't in my industry, but they were one specific type of person. They were the connector. But all of what we do, right? You think about all the business that you've done. I'm sure you could also think of a laundry list, not to air on this podcast, obviously, of all the people you've brought together that you've helped, you've supported, you've introduced, who didn't pay back that relationship value to you.
Mm-hmm.
They did a deal. You found out 3 years later. You didn't ask for a cut, maybe. You just asked for gratitude.
Right.
And they didn't think of it the way that we as connectors think.
Mm-hmm.
So what I realized, and again, everything in life comes from mistakes. It doesn't come from success. I don't think everyone goes, my life was golden. I learned everything from making the right choices.
Mm-hmm.
I made the wrong choice. I made a choice repeatedly to be in and around the people I loved and I trusted, people that I would leave my children with. And I failed for years, Aaron, to connect them to each other as connectors until I got tired of it. I saw the pattern. I said, you know what I need to change? I'm going to only convene connectors. I built a group, and in my other life as being a composer, I said, you know what I really do? I orchestrate connections.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to build a private community, a methodology called Orchestrated Connecting, to connect connectors to each other. So our relationship value, the way we see the world, isn't one node to one intro, but it's super node to super node. People who might have a massive value that no one else sees, but we see, because we intuitively know this is not just a craft. This is an art. This is a calling. And the relevance of bringing those people together now, my little baby in this case is 8.5 years old. That's when I started this, has been this unbelievable ripple effect of getting out of the way of putting the right people with each other, which is a much larger amplifier than even a group like you might have dominance within real estate. You might be just a great connector in real estate, but it's another friend of mine who's in sports or impact or family office or venture might say to me, hey, I want to get more involved in multifamily in the state of New Jersey. Who should I talk to? But being a super connector in that space who convenes people, I'll only think of you, because if I get that node to you, maybe you guys do some great business together and thank me down the line.
At People's Capital Group, we help you invest in real estate. Build your wealth by owning professionally managed apartment buildings in the northern New Jersey market. We want to show you how owning real estate is attainable, even for the busy professionals that don't have the time or experience investing in real estate. Now, we only work with select people who are serious about building wealth, so find out if you qualify at peoplescapitalgroup.com. Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. So instead of just connecting a contractor to a real estate investor, or a realtor to an investor, you're connecting guys like me and guys like you that have these huge networks, these tentacles out, and I think of it kind of like a diagram. You have people here with a bunch of connections and a person here with a bunch of connections. And if you connect those two people, it's exponential, the amount of value created. And that's really a beautiful thing, and the thing about being a connector, go ahead. Yeah.
So I just want to say with that, right? You mentioned you have a kid. How old is your kid now?
It's 2.5. Yeah.
2.5. So at some point, you're going to end up at the Liberty Science Center, where I live in New Jersey,
of course,
in Jersey City. And you're going to see this thing that's called a cog vector. People also call it a vector cog. It's that gear that has all those other gears.
Right.
When you put one gear next to the other, you turn it. This is how I visualize this. Each supernode has all these gears, but when you build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you turn one, the sixth one turns.
Right.
It's impossible to visualize in terms of our relationships, how those work, until a chain of what we did was built and become substantial. Then we can go, oh, my friend Brad, I connected to Aaron, who I've met through my friend Tom. Aaron connected Brad to this person. Now they're doing multifamily real estate together. Those 4 different nodes are now turning into something substantial, but it only happened because my friend Adi brought me to this conference where we met. But my friend Alex, who's an organic friend I met years ago, got me to Adi. Those are 6 cog vectors that now turn together. Right. In my world, it's not just getting from me through my prior relationships to the result for you, for my friend Brad. It's about building a community around those relationships. Because if something substantial happens in one instance, it could happen repeatedly now that we've built the real glue of this, which isn't the gears sticking together, but the relationship trust that comes along with how everyone approaches it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that really circles back to reputation as well. Just the more people of course, if you have a good reputation as well, the more value you create, and the easier it is to get deals as well. Like I was in touch with an individual selling a 190 unit development in Newark the other day. And he said, well, someone gave me your number and another person gave me your number as well. And another person gave me your number. They all told me to reach out to you individually of themselves. And so I'm glad to finally get a hold of you. And then he connected me with the person, the initial seller. This guy was wholesaling me the deal. And then he connected me with the actual owner of the property. And that owner said, oh, yeah, I know you. I know who you are. So we know you from the auction. So and that is allowing the deal to move forward in one way or another. So just being out there and focusing on a market or an industry as well, but also just in general, what you do, not even focusing on an industry, just agnostically out there connecting individuals. As Warren Buffett says, it takes 20 years to build your reputation and 20 seconds to destroy it, especially now with social media. Reputation's everything. And the more you connect people and the more you're out there attending the events, making connections, being a positive impact in people's lives, and guess what? They're usually not going to cut you in on the deal that they're doing when you're connecting everyone. But I figure it's good karma. It goes up to God at the end of the day. And, the more we can connect people and create value, eventually that value does come back to you in one way or another,
It does. And you asked me a question 10 minutes ago I didn't fully answer. So I want to answer that in the context of what you just said, right? In terms of how I bring together all of these family offices and venture capitalists and people that go, oh my God, you have access to fill in the blank. There's 2 parts of this, right? One, I would challenge you when you say, like, let's hope it's good karma. Because what I would say, and this is what happens with every connector in the community that I run, which is a private community opt-in only, where every single person is an action-oriented natural giver that I would leave my kids with no exceptions, which means if I introduce you to my buddy Brad, which I will, I would leave your 2.5-year-old with him. He just got married. He's thinking about kids, so he's trying to get that way. But like more than that, like he's that type of ethical human being I would trust the interaction for.
Sure.
The mistake connectors make, the mistake a lot of people connecting make. We don't ask for the value as we're giving it. We assume as we give it, it will come back to us. And my tenet is you ask for that value, not for the cut. But if this interaction then works in a deal where you're not cut in, you say, listen, like, I'd love to be able to come back to you with future deals you take seriously from me because I gave something of value to you. Or my friend so-and-so that I'm bringing to you, like, they've been a really great lead gen for me for a decade. I'd love you to treat that relationship with the respect I have building it because I believe in a long-term relationship with them as it would with you. When you watch how people light up and they change the way they think of you as a purposeful connector, it's no longer, hey, that deal happened, I didn't get in. They're going to go, hey, that deal happened. I got a private one you need to come into now. You bring some people in, you'll be a GP with me because you gave me something I couldn't, which was to solve my problem. And so this is the other half of what I look at, right? The reason my network has an insane number of people with access to celebrities, athletes, are or connected to billionaire family offices and the rest is I'm not after what they can do for me. I'm trying to figure out what they are asking for that I can match that ask with somebody else in my network.
Right.
When you take two people, regardless of their ilk, fame, power, or privilege, and you solve their problem simultaneously, ask to ask, it shows that you have an intuition and an ability to really change something they couldn't do with everything they have coming to the table. It not only builds trust, but it does it where they start to see you as the go-to person they should ask when they have exhausted their needs or they're excited about something next and that they think of you first. Apropos your call about this deal in Newark. And then you're validated. You're what Ray Dalio calls triangulated by all these different people.
Right.
It's not just your reputation or the fact you helped and there's karma. Now you've positioned yourself strategically as the most valued asset in relationships they think of first. Then you start getting every other call, then you start getting every call. And then suddenly what happens, and this is what happens in my business as well, you're the first call. And you're the first call they respond to when you need something from them. That is actually a currency. It's a relationship currency people don't value because we don't ask for it as a value the way I believe we should.
At People's Capital Group, we help you invest in real estate. Build your wealth by owning professionally managed apartment buildings in the northern New Jersey market. We want to show you how owning real estate is attainable, even for the busy professionals that don't have the time or experience investing in real estate. Now, we only work with select people who are serious about building wealth. So find out if you qualify at peoplescapitalgroup.com. Right. Now, great points, sir. I really love what you're talking about. But let's also switch over to a question I think a lot of people have, and the word family office is kind of becoming a buzzword. Family offices have exploded in the last 4 years or so since 2019. I think I just posted something on LinkedIn. I forget the amount. It's like 125% increase or something like that. And which is a great sign of prosperity that family and people are being successful in business and building their wealth and managing and preserving their wealth as well. But now becomes the challenge of investing that wealth with the right operators. And as an operator, or as someone as a business owner, or someone that just needs access to capital, how does one go about even finding family offices and engaging with them in a manner that isn't just going to be, oh, sure, here's a business card, but actually engaging with them and actually receiving an investment possibly down the road in their business idea or real estate venture or so on?
So I love the question also because I know you know the answer to this by the virtue of how we met, right? How do you do it? You don't just sponsor some conference and pitch people on what you do. You build relationships. Every family is a family. Every person is a person. The more you can engage, right? And you've done well for yourself. You've done well for your family and everything that you've built. You know, I've done the same to different degrees in my world. The more that you meet people, not for the wealth they represent, but for the opportunity to collaborate or just get to know how you can help them, the more you become somebody they really believe are safe because you are safe. I don't believe you judge people by what they say. You judge them by their actions.
All right.
You know, I'm raising for a tech startup right now, and I'm calling a whole bunch of family office friends. I'm giving them an option to opt in or opt out of what they do. But one of them called me up and she's like, I just looked back because I wanted to understand. We've been friends for 6.5 years. You've never pitched me once. Why not? And I go, because I didn't have anything relevant for you. You don't tell me what you're looking for. And then she told me, and I smile and she goes, why? I go, one, because I can make the intro for you. And two, because the tech would have told you I had this intro 2 years ago when you needed it. And she sort of smiled back on our Zoom call and was like, okay, I get it. Like you build the relationship because a person preserving their legacy by virtue of that is going to be around for quite some time. What would you rather have? A one-off pitch to somebody that goes, it's not in our portfolio, we're not interested, or we're doing something else. Right. A relationship where they go, Aaron, like we told us we wanted these type of deals. They weren't the right ones, but the fact they were filtered and we knew investors in it that you knew means next time, as what I just said a few minutes ago, we're going to think of you when we're thinking, how do we expand our portfolio for wealth preservation in real estate, specifically in the Pine Barren region? And I would have no clue besides going hiking there with my kids because I love it. I would have no clue about that, but I would think somebody with a network of 6,000 people with real estate in New Jersey most likely does. So if you've imprinted that on me, then I imprint that on a family office asking me, their ask and your ask are the same, as I just said, right? Therefore, you're not trying to permeate that. You're trying to get the access to get to like one of the biggest real estate families in New Jersey, which are the Wilfs. It's not trying to figure out that. It's trying to figure out if you are relevant in the world of Holocaust preservation in particular. You're already talking with them because it's a value system and something they take extremely seriously as philanthropists. It's not an in. You have to be taking action with those values. In order to then not have those values judged or looked at as being mirrored, but being symbiotic, even if one group is a billionaire and you have an opportunity.
Right. Exactly. And knowing what the needs or requests are of that family office and not bringing them stuff that's outside of their buy box or investment box, is important because you don't want to waste their time or seem irrelevant. But that relationship is everything. I mean, at the end of the day, most family offices I know invest in real estate in one way or another. Of course, they have their areas they want to invest in, but I find that the family offices that invest with us are really, it's based on a relationship. It's based on them enjoying the way that I carry myself at these events, how we speak publicly, how we source off market opportunities as well. But it's a combination of everything. They have to like you. They have to want to go out to dinner with you,
But they look at it right. And there's a time cost for building a relationship, taking you out for dinner. I mean, I imagine you at a family office dinner also with like a 2.5-year-old eating chicken fingers and getting ketchup on your suit. You probably don't bring your son, but like maybe. But like the way I'm thinking is like, you said like what you said was the negative of it, right? You don't want to waste their time. But I want to invert it because this is how a true connector thinks. And I know it's probably how you think with this. What you want to do is you want to save them time and give them insight. Therefore, they want to build more trust with you.
Right.
When you become seen as a positive peer in that way to any wealth holder, they understand that you're going to be selective with what they have as they will be selective with you. And that respect isn't about the number of zeros in the bank account. Right. It's about the fact that all of these, whether purposeful or not, are ecosystems of relationships.
Right.
And if you want to permeate this world, as I have, fairly successfully done, look at the number of friendships I have. Look at the number of the relationships where I built those friendships across verticals of wealth and understand that the power that I have, the positioning that I have, isn't my ability to go to a bunch of people and pitch them on everything. Right. But by virtue of them knowing I'm selective when it's for a friend or for a client, they know I'm respecting the fact that they should approach this.
Right.
And therefore my ROI is much deeper, even than other consultants who work with access to the family office world. I'm not a consultant with access. I'm an ecosystem builder. Let's align those together. And if we align those together, everything stays relational, even when it's transactional. And that's the way to think of this as the mentality for it.
At People's Capital Group, we help you invest in real estate. Build your wealth by owning professionally managed apartment buildings in the northern New Jersey market. We want to show you how owning real estate is attainable, even for the busy professionals that don't have the time or experience investing in real estate. Now, we only work with select people who are serious about building wealth. So find out if you qualify at peoplescapitalgroup.com. Yeah, yeah. And don't always be pitching a deal either, especially in the beginning of the relationship. Make it, you could talk about what you do a little bit, of course, talk about my business, but people can understand what you do and the value you bring without pitching a deal, and just talking about what you have going on and what you've accomplished, but really let them talk as well. I love asking family offices how they built their wealth. And I always learn from their stories, and they're always incredible. They're always like a novel for the most part. And as an entrepreneur myself, I just love it. A lot of these guys are like 50x their return in biotech or something, or make 2,000 cold calls and the last one hit and they brought in this deal and then they made 100x. And so it's always a really interesting story. Some of them are like, I inherited $1 billion from my family, but
it's true. Well, let me tell you one of those amazing no-no stories just to understand why this world of like handing out business cards and not just handing out business cards, but also like just leading with deal isn't the way to go. So I was at Milken with the friend who's the scion of a major billionaire giving pledge family. And we're friends, right? We were there for irrelevance of some of the work that we were both doing. And it's a long conference. You drink a lot of coffee and tea. So like we went to the restroom.
Sure.
And in the restroom, and I promise this is PC for a podcast for every ratings you have to deal with. In the restroom, this guy sees this guy's last name and he starts talking to him. And he starts talking to me because we're obviously together. Like it's already awkward. Like you're talking in a men's room. Like usually the taboo is like, please don't utter a single word. Right. And my friend and I, we wash our hands. This guy's still talking to us, and then we leave. And like he wants to like shake our hand. And I look at him and I was like, listen, like one, like you just led with the deal. You don't know anything about us. But two, like we were in the restroom with you. You didn't wash your hands. So we're not gonna shake hands with you. Like this is not the relevance that we thought. And so like it's like, but that was the obtuseness of this individual, that they thought in some way that like the opportunity was such an opportunity to undertake. And I just remember like my friend like looking at this guy's name and being like, this guy's going on a list of like, don't approach, because he didn't ask me what I was doing. He didn't learn about anything. And then like, unfortunately, like 70% of us, when we're in a bathroom by ourselves as men, like he didn't wash. And like that was enough for me to just say like I'd like friends who have some sort of sanitary habits with what they do.
Sure. It's like that Seinfeld episode where the chef doesn't wash his hands and then he gets served the food and but no, that's really interesting. Never lead with a deal. Always ask about what they're doing. I like to, at these conferences, I kind of just open up with how do you like the conference so far? I did you like that last speaker about, yeah, he was pretty interesting. And I say, oh yeah, one of my favorite speakers was this or that. And then there's a million things you could talk about, where you're coming from, what you're doing in the city. Maybe you have a couple extra days you take and you go and explore what's coming up at the event. There's that fun thing we're doing at the end of the event. Are you going to partake in that? I never go near a deal. I wait for them to ask me, what do you do, Aaron? Now listen, there are times, that in kind of you could tell the conversation is leading, they say what they do, and then you kind of feel awkward not saying anything about what you do. You don't want to seem like you're unemployed, So I'll explain briefly what we do. But for the most part, I really just build the rapport, talk about the right now, how we're enjoying the conference, what they're seeing. If we're both real estate guys, we'll talk about the market a little bit. Oh, what are you seeing in Florida? Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing in Jersey, and that's always good. And you can show your strength and your expertise by just talking about what you do a little bit, but also having the gift of the gab and being able to make people feel comfortable and like human beings. We all travel these things, and then wash your hands, man.
I'll tell you what I do, which is a little more nuanced. And it's partly because like when I was in my 20s, like I ended up only dating older people because I was always way too serious, even though, as you know, like I look way too young for my age even now. But But my friend Rachel Gerald, who co-founded the community Nexus, which is a massive, beautiful, impact-focused next gen group. She always leads with what's your passion? And I've adopted variations of it, but in every context, like I want to understand what people's passion are, what their purpose is. And then really just I offer to help them. And especially in that type of environment where we met, like, yeah, you can have a lot of insight into conversations, but if you can get to the thing that excites the person they wish they could do more of,
Yeah.
and the pain points around where they need to head it, like this is also where I step in because like my work is impact, mental health, climate change, addiction, social justice. Like if somebody's just like, I got a good real estate deal, I'd be like, oh, cool, go talk to Aaron. But if I call you up and I say, hey, I got a guy, and I actually do have a guy for you for this, my new friend Chris, he's building out real estate with the purpose of putting tutoring for kids into every community center and every multifamily complex.
Wow.
And then he wants to give teachers affordable or free housing because they make so little in our world to live in those communities. So communities have the staying power and a passion around this for what education and community should be together. Want to talk to him about his real estate deals? Think of the difference of when you lead with that passion and purpose, then I got a deal, want to check out the deal even after building the rapport.
Yeah.
And so that's why like what I like to lean into, what I like to really focus is if somebody's willing to be vulnerable because I'm willing to start being vulnerable about my life, about my family, about my kids, about being divorced, about where my business is doing good or bad, or where I might talk a lot about relationship value, but not everyone values the relationships I bring, even to this day. Like if that's the start of a conversation that starts deeper, you just shortchange that 20-minute talk, that next 30-minute meeting. Because if you start with the purpose and you're intentional about adding value first and people believe it, that vulnerability builds a relationship quicker.
Right.
It also gives you insight as to the staying power of that relationship.
Sure.
And then when they come around, most people I meet with, prominent or not, feel really guilty. They've spent so much time talking about themselves. And when they turn it back to you to go, Aaron, like you're running all of these events, you do this incredible podcast, you have 6,000 members, and you have a kid who is at an age where you need to be there to be imprinted every 2 months with every change. How are you managing that? Because I remember that when my kids were 2.5, and that 18 months to 3 years old, that was the hardest and most important for everyone to know, my kids to know, dad's around, dad's there.
Yeah.
It's not just mom, despite the world of the way, unfortunately, economics work for women compared to men. So like if that type of conversation was, I'm not suggesting at the tail end of this podcast we suddenly jump into and then you and I are crying about how the balance of work versus being an active dad means it's impossible. But like that type of passion of me getting it as a parent, like you as a parent getting it, means our next conversation when we catch up post this is just going to be, it's not going to be about, can I find you real estate members in New Jersey or like deals or friends? Like it starts with the purpose. It starts with the why, which you were clear to me when we connected about your why, being an active dad and that change in your life. Like that's what we did talk about a little bit. Once you've gotten that, not out of the way, but to set the foundation, that foundation is much stronger forever from that.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. Speaking of being an active dad, I got to pick up my son in about 45 minutes. So we got to wrap up the podcast here. And it's important to have that work-life balance and be an active father in your son's life. 100%, man. It's the most important thing in my life. So it's a beautiful thing, fatherhood and having a child. So kudos to you there, and kudos to good dads out there. And but anyway, how can people reach out to you, David? How can they learn more about what you do?
So everything I make very searchable and easy. If you Google Orchestrated Connecting, orchestratedconnecting.com, you can find my website, you can see my videos, you can read a lot of what I've done. I am looking for specifically connectors, super connectors. If somebody wants to approach me, you can find my email and cell phone. I care about the intentionality of it. But what I care about more, Aaron, and I'll leave with this, knowing we're out of time, I care about somebody saying, I've been an avid listener for Aaron's podcast for years. I have been a member of his events. I enjoyed this, and I first reach out to thank him for putting you on this. And after expressing that gratitude, now I'd like to talk to you, David. Would you take the time? And anyone who I text you and I go, hey, did Laura write you? And you go, oh my God, I got the most effusive, beautiful email. She listened to podcast 6, 18, 30, and 400.
Huh.
And she just got me 2 new members. I'm going to take that call and that time just out of respect of her respecting you first.
Sure.
That's how you find out about what I do, because those people with that intention, those are the people I absolutely love.
I love that, man. That's beautiful. That's great. That's great. Yeah, no, that's wow. Hopefully some of my podcasts does that. That's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask. If they don't reach out to me first, though, it's okay. You can still take their call. And
I might, but like the work you do, the convening you do, the fact you've been doing this for a dozen years and soon to be a baker's dozen, right? Like
yeah,
it's much more meaning that people are giving you credit for. You put yourself out there, you take the time for your podcast, you have members, you connect them. My guess is 80% of all that effort never comes back to you.
yeah,
And
it's
my
hard to
point is
calculate.
people should see that value. And it's as simple as sending an email,
Mm,
showing up somewhere, lean in for you the way you've leaned in for them, because
yeah,
then people are respecting the relationship value. And if
right.
anything, people have listened to the two of us now, it's a
Mhm.
value we all should recognize more of because it comes back to us the more we respect it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that attitude, and that's a really important thing, to have that grace as well, and that gratitude in general to other people, and remember them when the connections are made, and let them know of that, and communicate that to them. So beautiful message, David. I really love what we're talking about here. You've been a great guest on the Passive Cash Flow podcast. So thanks a lot for coming on. We'll get this episode right out to our listeners here in just a couple days. And to our listeners there, if you're enjoying our content, please hit the like and subscribe button there on YouTube and on all major podcast platforms. We come out with a new episode every month here. We're up to like over 150 episodes here on the Passive Cash Flow podcast. And connect with David Homan. He's a jewel of a man here, incredible connector, very knowledgeable. And listen to his music as well there. Where can we find your music, David?
Homan Music, Homan music.com. Or if you Google David Homan and the word music,
Yeah.
I have about 200 of my works on my website. You can say to Alexa, as you said earlier, you can go on Spotify, like it's out there. It's classical music, it's private music. No one's going to think they met some pop star through your podcast. But if I can find that one piece, Aaron, that
Uh-huh.
gives at least one listener
Yep.
purpose and calm, that's my goal as a musician.
I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. That's beautiful, my friend. All right, great. Well, you have a good day, and we'll talk shortly. Thanks a lot for coming on the podcast.